Hi, welcome to Cover 3 Press Podcast, Episode 1. I'm Mason Riggs, and with me are my co-hosts Jake Ramsey and Justin Samra. We have a fun, jam-packed episode for you today. We're going to be talking about the projection of Oakland Raiders' 53-man roster, impactful undrafted rookies deserving of roster spots, as well as Andrew Luck's surprise retirement, and lastly, give you some thoughts of Dwight Howards' return to LA. Before we begin, I wanted to give you guys a little background on this. Josh, why don't you lead us off?
Yeah, so as Mason said, my name's Justin Samra. I'm a senior at Long Beach State. I've been playing sports my whole life. Big-time Oakland sports fan, and I'm just ready to go. I've known Ramsey since high school. We played football together for 1 year, basketball, and we've just been friends ever since. So, Ramsey, why don't you take it over?
What's up, guys? I'm Jake Ramsey. Big time sports fan. I play football at the University of Nevada. I recently went to Laney College. Shout out them. They're about to be on Last Chance U. I've known Justin since high school, as he said. We big time sports fans, played football together, basketball, all that stuff. I've known Mason actually since middle school. So we go way back, and we just want to share our passion of sports, and this is what we got, guys. So here we go, Mace.
And lastly, I'm Mason Riggs. Graduated from San Diego State, journalism, emphasis in media studies. Played football growing up, wrestled, baseball. Basically been a heavy sports junkie, primarily in the Oakland teams, Raiders, Warriors, A's. But very knowledgeable on the rest of the landscape of the leagues. And an avid fantasy football player with multiple championships to my resume. No big deal, although Josh got me last year in our big money league. Shout out to him. And basically, we're just, wanting to provide more content for our fan bases. We think there's definitely a void, especially when talking about the Raiders and A's. Warriors are obviously pretty impactful, and so the Lakers, but we just want to dive into, some of our direct storylines of our favorite teams and the storylines of the leagues that follow. So before we begin, I don't know if you guys saw, but, that female kicker making a run at the NFL. She might be
Carli Lloyd, right?
Carli Lloyd, yeah, the U.S. women's team. Third all-time leading scorer for the U.S. women's. What's your guys' some of your guys' thoughts on that? That was pretty surprising to see.
Yeah, I saw she was bearing what? She buried a 55-yarder, I think it was.
Pretty easily too, honestly.
Yeah. So,
honestly, I don't see why not. Kickoffs might be a little hard. I'd say, just for the simple fact, like, you don't want her going into a huge pile like that. But field goals, she knocked that down pretty easy, and it's not like she's just some random girl either. Like, she plays professional sports. She's an athlete,
national soccer star. So
definitely got ice in her veins. So yeah, I did see she got invited to kick this upcoming Thursday in a preseason game, but she turned it down just because of obligation to U.S. national women's team soccer event. Think they're going to attend a special event, so she turned it down. But she recently
she was aiming for 2020, I think.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, okay. I saw today. She said she's open to kicking in 2020. She has obligations this year, but so I bet someone will take a chance on her.
Yeah, with all the teams with kicking problems, she could definitely solve a couple of them for sure.
Yeah. It seems like the biggest thing with kickers as well is kind of the jitterbugs, kind of, EBGBs, and you would think that she'd be able to handle that with her extensive soccer career. And, I think it'd be a great thing, great inspiration for girls to get involved in football more than they're not. I just think that's it's definitely good for ball. Can't hurt. So let's get into topic one, projecting the 53-man roster for the Oakland Raiders. We'll kind of go position group by position group and give each of us some thoughts and some factors. A little highlight before we kind of dive into this. John Gruden the other day mentioned about there's some injuries going around the team And with heavy competition, those guys that are injured, might find themselves a tough cut just because, there's so much pressure from the back end players at several position groups, including defensive tackle, wide receiver, defensive end, as well as offensive line, that there might be some tough cuts in some of those fields. But let's go ahead and start breaking it down. First off, with the quarterback position, John Gruden has historically carried 3 quarterbacks. Last year, I believe, was his first time not carrying 3. He carried 2. And I think he'd definitely be interested in carrying all 3. However, because, there's injuries going around and there's so much competition towards the back end of each position group, I think, they're going to inevitably have to take only 2 to provide them that extra roster spot. So I currently have it slated as, obviously Derek Carr is a starter, and currently I have Glennon barely holding off Nathan Peterman out of Pittsburgh. The main reason for that is I just think if Mike, unless Peterman, clearly outperforms them this last preseason game tomorrow, I just think that Glennon is a proven backup. He started more games in this league. He's someone you could definitely rely on, and just more game experience. And if you were to cut, Mike Glennon, he would immediately get claimed. If you were to cut Nathan Peterman, there's a chance he could sneak onto the practice squad. So I got Glennon making it. What's some of your guys' thoughts on the quarterback position?
If you watch the latest episode of Hard Knocks, you see Gruden. I didn't really realize this, but Gruden loves Peterman. Peterman led that game-winning drive, and Glennon didn't play very well in the first half. But
and he yanked him too, which was
he did
surprising.
put Peterman in early. He said he loves Peterman, and he was saying he was like, I know you, to the offense coordinator or whoever he was talking to on the mic. He was like, I know you guys don't think he can play, but I love this kid. And I think like you said, Mason, if he goes out there week 4 and clearly outplays Mike Glennon, it's going to be Peterman number 2. Whether they keep Glennon or not, that's to be seen. But I think it really comes down to the performance in week 4, and I think right now Gruden likes Peterman more, which obviously from the upper hand. But I think Glennon's clearly the more seasoned vet, and probably the fan base at least would feel more comfortable with him probably in there if God forbid if Derek went down. But But Peterman can ball. The guy came out of Pitt with he was highly regarded. He took down Clemson in college, and he was high. Everybody thought he was the savior for the Bills. And obviously it didn't work out that way. But I think he can still play. He just in a couple bad situations. But I think if Gruden believes in him and he believes that Gruden believes in him, that'll give him the confidence to be a solid quarterback in this league.
Yeah. You could tell in these preseason games, like Peterman definitely is looking better, given he is playing, with the backups out there. But it honestly comes down to whoever Gruden's more comfortable with. Let's be real, let's be honest. If Derek goes down, it's going to be tough for them to win games. But at the end of the day, like you mentioned earlier, Mason, there's too much competition at the back end of the roster. I would just go with Carr, and then you just got to pick one, and then. I think you can find someone out there on waivers or on the street that if 2 guys go down will give you a chance. And that's just my opinion on that. I think it's better to, keep an extra pass rusher, extra safety, whatever it may be, give up that 3rd quarterback spot.
100% agree with both of you guys. Before we move on, I just kind of had this thought run across my mind. A hidden element that really might give Peterman the advantage, I know we said Glennon, but the running ability, being a backup quarterback and being able to move the chain with your legs, definitely is valuable in a backup more so than a starter. So,
yeah, for sure.
Like we were saying, Peterman's steadily improved, and with that added element, it wouldn't shock us definitely if Peterman ended up making it.
I agree. And just one last thing to add, I was watching him, and he was standing right next to Derek Carr, and he's almost like a poor man's Derek Carr. You know what I mean? Like they can run the offense, a lot of the same with him. With Glennon, they'd have to switch it up a lot. You know what I mean? just given his different type of stature and stuff like that. But
yeah, very true. He's definitely the prototypical pocket passer. So let's move on to the running back position. Included with fullback, I just included both those together. I have at 4, obviously with Josh Jacobs, Jalen Richard, DeAndre Washington, and then probably the biggest battle out of that, I have Alec Ingold edging out Keith Smith. I think he's just offers so much more of an upside, and he's already listed ahead of him. And getting last week off in Canada playing Green Bay, I think it's pretty obvious that they're going Ingold. So not really a whole bunch to digest here, but I think those are going to be the 4 backs that are on the roster. Do you guys have any thoughts on those players or anything?
I think just the biggest thing is I think it's good. It's a good sign that that Doug Martin was cut / put on IR. I mean obviously if he was healthy, I think he was good enough to play, but I think it's just a good sign that they're moving away from him. It's just
getting younger.
Yeah, exactly. It's a sign. I mean, you 100% go with DeAndre Washington in this case. I mean, Doug Martin looked good last year, but I mean, at the end of the day, what is he going to give you? What is he going to contribute to the future? I think it was a good sign that they walked away from Martin. Maybe shows a little growth in Gruden as a personnel man.
Yeah, I could see that maybe leaning on Mayock a little bit, going younger. And like you said, there wasn't nothing wrong with Doug Martin per se. It's just, you got to go younger with a higher upside, longer shelf life. A lot of people forget DeAndre Washington was really effective in 2016 against the Colts. The game Derek Carr went down. I think it was week 16, I believe. He had 12 carries for 99 yards, 2 tugs, reception for 18 yards. And then he followed up in week 17 with 7 carries for 43 yards, 2 receptions, 20 yards. So, and clearly in the preseason, he's been the feature back and really, really looks great out there all preseason.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's make our way to our next position group, the tight end. I have it projected, at only carrying 3 going into the season. The 3 I have would be Waller, Morrow from LSU, the rookie, and then Derek Carrier, this kind of Swiss Army knife. I have him edging out Luke Wilson just because he is that. He's got that receiver background, capable enough in the run game blocking, as well as got really good special teams ability. I know a lot of people kind of assumed Luke Wilson would make the team, especially after he set out that first preseason game. But it's pretty clear that they want Waller to start and Morrow to be the backup, forwarding those younger players. So that last tight end group, you got to have that flexibility. That's what I'm going with Carrier. What are your guys' some of your thoughts on that position group going into the year?
I mean, like you said, I think Waller's a clear-cut starter. And obviously they're going to keep Morrow, and he's definitely earned the second spot on tight end, as like they're bringing him in 22 personnel and stuff like that. Because he's a solid blocker and he can run and catch. And then
let the people know what 22 personnel is, just if we got any avid listeners out there.
22 personnel would be like your 2 tight ends and a running back and a fullback. Like a big set. You can just use your goal line type of sets. 12 personnel.
Yeah, I formation type of stuff.
12 personnel, which I don't know how much the Raiders are going to run it this year, but 2 tight end sets with 1 running back and then stuff like that. But so I think Morrow definitely earned that second spot. He's going to be a solid player, I think. And then Derek Carrier, like you said, I think the reason why he did edge out Luke Wilson is just because he can do it all. He can play special teams. He can line up a receiver. He can block. He can even line him up a fullback. Like you saw him week 2 against the Cardinals, they threw him that fade. You know what I mean? He has the ability to do that. So I think that's kind of a no-brainer, honestly.
Yeah, may not be elite at one thing, but well balanced at pretty much everything.
I remember last year they were, before the season started, they were writing about how they were going to use Carrier a lot, and I think Jared Cook kind of stole a little bit of his for sure. I think this year Carrier is going to take another step in his offense.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. late in the year against the Steelers, he really stood out. Carrier, I believe he made the game-winning touchdown to seal the deal. And then touching on Waller real quick, not a lot of experience. We've seen on Hard Knocks his journey through substance abuse. We're all rooting for him. But from a measurable standpoint, 6'6", 4'4", 40, you could just see him demolishing the seam with AB and Terrell Williams outside. You just, at cover 3, beware. I could just see him having a lot of big games if he can just, stay healthy and make it through 16 games.
I agree. I think he could be scary in there if he stays healthy and, stays on the right path and stuff. And we'll see. And I think he's even an improved blocker too. When they signed him, I didn't know, I didn't know anything about him blocking or anything like that. So, but I think he's going to be an improved blocker. I think that's what most people are going to be surprised about. And they do have Foster Moreau too. So if they, if Waller for whatever reason can't get the job done blocking, they have Moreau too. But I think,
at the very minimum, he's very effective, at getting his position in between, he's good at shielding his position between the defender and the ball carrier. He may not be pushing people back, like a typical run blocker, but he at least knows where the ball's going and uses his body position to at least create the little gap. So yes, he's serviceable. I could see him surprising a little bit.
Like you said, he's 6'6", about 245. Like, he has the frame. It's all there. He just has to put it on the field. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Okay, so one of the heated groupings in the roster, the deepest battles, is the wide receiver position. It's been a bloodbath out there. One of the deepest positions, as I've said. You got AB, a for sure lock, Antonio Brown, that is. Terrell Williams, a for sure lock. Hunter Renfrow. And then kind of everyone else. There's about 4 or 5 deserving guys that could all make a case for a spot, whether it's J.J. Nelson, the speedster that was formerly with Arizona, Ryan Grant, who was with the other group in Washington, the slot man, Keelan Doss, the undrafted player at UC Davis, who's with the Raiders during the Senior Bowl, or the special teams ace Dwayne Harris, who made that, memorable kick that might have been the last night in Oakland last year against the Denver Broncos, 99 yards to the house. So heated position group. Like I said, plenty of these guys are deserving, but currently I have them going in with 6. And, the 6 would be, in my opinion, and what I think they might do, obviously, would be Antonio Brown, Tyrell Williams, Hunter Renfrow, J.J. Nelson, Keelan Doss, and Dwayne Harris. Ryan Grant really has impressed in preseason. However, he's kind of a true slot, and we know that Renfrow can do that. I think they're going to want to use Brown in the slot as well. And J.J. Nelson, him edging it out over him, in my opinion, would be, Nelson has world-class speed. That's, something that's very tangible, that like a Renfrow wouldn't have, or like a Keelan Doss, who I also have projected making the team. And the last spot, Dwayne Harris, just because the special teams ability, I just think if you can knock that off, that would be perfect. Any thoughts on some of these guys, fellas, or any preferences? Would you guys take Grant over one of those guys? What are your guys' thoughts on the wide receiver group?
I think you said it well. Like, this is easily the deepest position group that they have. I think they have legitimately like 7 or 8 NFL receivers. I know Vic Tafer at The Athletic, he was writing that they might be trying to find trade suitors for Ryan Grant, but I agree with the 6 that you agreed to keep, especially Brown, Williams, Renfrow, and Dwayne Harris because of his returning abilities. And then just honestly watching Hard Knocks and kind of watching how they're using Doss. It just feels like Gruden really likes him, and I would be surprised if he got cut. And I was at that first preseason game. J.J. Nelson had a sweet little catch from Glennon. So I like the 6 that you decided to keep. Wouldn't shock me if maybe Ryan Grant over Nelson, but my prediction is they try to find a trade partner for Ryan Grant, maybe get another guard or something.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if they could trade Ryan Grant, that'd probably be best case scenario at this point. Because, like you guys said, I don't have him projected making the team because obviously the two big guys is going to be AB and Tyrell, and then Hunter. They're not going to cut Hunter Renfro, in the keep him in the slot. And I honestly think JJ Nelson and Keelan Dawson definitely played their way onto the roster.
Yeah.
Keelan Dawson especially has definitely played. He's led the team in receptions every preseason game. I think. I don't know about one, but I know 2 and 3 he did. And I think Gruden, obviously, like you guys said, he loves them. You know what I mean? They're if you watch Hard Knocks, they said get Keelan and get Dawson there. I want to see what he can do. You know what I mean? Like they're giving him the ball. I like at this point I'd be shocked if they cut him. And
he's making plays too.
He is making plays. That's the thing. And I'd be shocked if they cut him at this point. And I think Jason Nelson has, probably played his way onto the team. I mean, Ryan Grant did run with the ones against Arizona. I mean, that was still early, so that doesn't mean much. But I mean, we'll see. I like
kind of one-dimensional.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Nelson.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they took Grant over Nelson. That's kind of like it depends what they want to do with that. But I think they're like you said, Mason. He has world-class speed, and it's kind of hard to come by. So I think they're going to keep that on there. And then Dwayne Harris is just special teams, the Swiss Army knife, Pro Bowler special teamer. Like it's kind of hard to cut a guy like, especially when you're so deep in the receiving core, you can afford to have a guy like that. You know what I mean? It makes your team better all the way around. It's 3 aspects of the game. So I'd be shocked.
If you kind of like step back with those 6, if you kind of had to label them, A, B would be the elite number 1. If something happened to AB, you got Williams, who has that potential to be a 1, definitely a solid 2. Renfro to be that awesome number 3. Like we said, Nelson can, if something happened, can always play outside and always stretch the defense, which is, accounts for the safety. And then Doss really is that young guy that should only grow, and he's got that unique big body, NFL, 6'3", 215 body. Yeah. So I can definitely see it being those 6, but what a bloodbath.
I mean, isn't it just crazy? Like, just take a step back, think about it. I mean, besides Dwayne Harris, and Harris doesn't even really play on offense that much. I mean, none of these guys were on the team last year. I mean, what if I told you a couple years ago, like that 2016 year? I mean, no Amari Cooper, no Michael Crabtree, no Seth Roberts. I mean, it's just crazy how they've really transformed it in like
a long way.
Yeah, none of those players were on the team last year, and it looks like
definitely looking up for the Raiders. But it's good they're having these are good problems to have. You know what I mean? Because even guys that we don't even have a shot to make the route, like Rico Gaffer has played great in the preseason.
Yeah, he really has.
And Keon Hatcher made the team out of camp last year.
Yeah, and Ryan Grant has played well, and these guys probably
Pearson L's played pretty good too.
Yeah.
DeMonte Pearson.
Yeah, he has.
And honestly, these guys probably won't make the team, but they're NFL players. They're going to make another team or be practice squatted on the Raiders or somewhere else. You know what I mean? Yeah. These guys are definitely going to be in the NFL. So I think this is a great problem to have. Like you said a few years ago, Justin, they had guys starting that shouldn't even have been on an NFL roster.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you look at our team last year, most of the team players that we lost are not on NFL rosters this year. So definitely make or break year for DC, and they're really going to enable him to really have his best year of his career. And I expect him to have it. And kind of how we mentioned the trade wins about possibly the receiver Ryan Grant. Justin brought up about Vic Tafer. As we go through this roster, as we talk about these tough cuts, you'll see, by the time we walk away here, there's about 4 or 5 true NFL roster players, rotation players that are going to be cut off this team. So I could definitely expect us to be active on trying to, acquire some late round picks instead of just losing those players outright. Mike Mayock did a wonderful job of really turning out this roster and getting some depth, which is much needed.
Definitely.
So it's the next position group, offensive tackle. I really had a tough time really holding 4 or 3 here. The reason for this, in my opinion, is, obviously you have the 2 starters, Miller and Brown for sure, but Brandon Parker has not looked very good in my opinion. I was really hoping to to take a step forward, after spending the offseason with Gabe Jackson. But he's really up and down. I don't know if it's because he's flip-flopping right and left. But really Sharp, who we took out of Florida, several years ago, ended up getting cut and, got back on our team late last year, has really, really outplayed him. And they're both the same age, but I don't want to cut Brandon Parker, a third-round pick last year. And, I think he should have been like a fifth-round pick. But that's why I traditionally would only carry 3 tackles, having that traditional swing. But I don't want them to cut Parker. We don't think they will. But I gotta give Sharp a roster spot on my team. Just hasn't a lot of pressure. Just looks great out there, since training camp. So I got those 4 guys making it. And then also, Miller looks great. Added some good weight, some good strength. Some other thoughts on the line. Trent Brown, Von Miller was quoted as saying, the most difficult guy to get a sack on when he was back with the Niners as a rookie. So I'm kind of optimistic really about that position group. But like I said, I'd hold 4 instead of the traditional 3. You guys have any thoughts on that? Or yeah.
I mean, I think they'll end up taking 4 because, like you said, I don't think they're going to cut Brandon Parker. I agree, has not been playing well at all. But I think they kind of drafted him and he did play more snaps. A lot of guys in the roster played more snaps than we're supposed to last year. But I think they drafted him with the thought that that he's a project. You know what I mean? And this offseason he was living in Mississippi with Gabe Jackson. He apparently put on 30, 35 pounds. And so I think they want to see if he can play. And like you said, Sharp looks like a beast out there. He's moving around well. He's playing really well. So I think they're going to end up keeping all 4, but I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up cutting one of them. But we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I know Colton had injury problems last year and whatnot. Hopefully that year of playing just helped because, like I said, I just honestly don't have a lot of faith in Brandon Parker back there. I mean, he really struggled last year, and I mean, it's expected. He, like Mason said, he really shouldn't have been a 3rd-round pick. But I mean, Trent Brown looks sweet. So I mean, we paid him all that money. I think that right side will be good to go. Hopefully Colton Miller just takes that next step. And I mean, yeah, I like taking 4 just because I'm not super confident with Brandon Parker, at least right now.
I agree, and I mean 3, that's ideal, but that backup tackle, that swing tackle, he's got to be a beast. You know what I mean?
It's important. I mean, tackles go down all the time. Offensive line, you got to have that depth.
And I think if either Parker or Sharp, really stood out, like, wow, this guy's a guy. You know what I mean? He can play. Yeah. They'd probably cut one of them, but I don't think either of them have stood out Parker definitely hasn't, but I don't think Sharp has stood out like that where it's like this guy can play no matter what, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think they've definitely both probably earned a roster spot.
Yeah, fair enough. Good points, guys. So let's move on to guards. This one is also kind of a little tricky just because of the suspension of Richie Incognito the first 2 weeks and the uncertainty of Gabe Jackson, probably the first, not projected to be there the first 4, but, could be the first 6 weeks. So I have them once again holding 4, Incognito, Jackson, Denzel Good, and Cooper. However, I do believe there's 5 worthy. The undrafted player out of Alabama, Lester Cotton. I believe it is deserving. However, since they need production right away, I think they go possibly with the veteran player Cooper and hope that they can sneak Cotton through the practice squad. I know they've been impressed with him quite a bit. Yeah. Any thoughts on that, fellas?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very viable option they could do is put Cotton on the practice squad. But like I said, Cognito's out for 2 weeks, and Jackson, it's kind of to be seen what's up with him. You know what I mean? How long he's going to be out. So I think that they might even keep keep Cotton on the roster just because they're going to need backup guards. Because they're just not real deep at that position right now.
Kendall Good's coming off surgery too. I mean, he's just coming back too.
I think honestly they'll probably keep 2 centers and then like 5 guards. Is probably what they'll do.
Okay. The only reason I would maybe lean the other way is the backup center. Both backup centers have taken reps with the first team since the injury at guard, like Debbie, a veteran out of Kansas City. So I could see them maybe holding a center just because the center could play guard, not necessarily guard could play center. But definitely. Very true. Wanting the backup versatility, you're going to need it. You definitely just don't want 2 guys only that can play center. But I do think at the center position, whether it's Debbie or Andrews that makes it, could fill in at guard. But very good point, fellas. Very good. Definitely need to have that.
I think that is a very good point, Mace. I think honestly, when it comes to center and guard, they're just going to keep the best. The best. As talking about backups, they're going to keep the best players, some positions, because they just need if they need guys to go in there, they just need the best players they can have. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wrapping up the offensive line and the offensive position groups projection for the 53-man rosters, the center position. Once again, 3 really deserving players. Hudson, Devi, and Andrews, the undrafted player at UCLA, deserve it. However, I have them holding only 2 just because, they got to maximize the amount of players. So I have Hudson and Devi, and with the hope that they can sneak Andrews to the practice squad. Because, like I said, Devi has been taking some reps with the first team at guard, and I think they just kind of want those veteran leadership early on. But once again, 3 players deserving another tough cut, another player that at minimum will make a practice squad, someone in Andrews. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure that wraps up our offensive position groups. We're actually going to do defense on our next pod, just try to save some time. However, we will touch on some of the other topics that we were going to talk about, primarily some of the undrafted rookies that really have a good chance, deserve to make the team. We'll kind of go through it quickly. No particular order. The first player that really stood up from an undrafted standpoint would be Alec Ingold, the fullback that we touched on from Wisconsin, 6'1", 242, who was a high school wrestling champ, displayed soft hands in college as well as preseason, found the end zone quite often for a fullback in college, scored 20 touchdowns on an astonishing, 112 touches. He did a blocker in the ISO game. The first game against the Rams this preseason, he, was the lead blocker for James Butler and DeAndre Washington and set up a key block for Nathan Peterman and Glennon multiple times, and was a serviceable outlet for dump-offs with 4 receptions, 22 yards. Pretty much he's been named the starter over Keith Smith since OTAs. So he's pretty much a lock in my opinion. So that was a great find. The Raiders had him in the Senior Bowl. You guys have any thoughts on Alec Ingold before I move on?
I mean, I love Alec Ingold. I think he's a baller, and I think that was a steal for the Raiders. Honestly,
I'm not the biggest Keith Smith fan.
I was about to say I was never real high on Keith Smith.
As soon as he dropped Spider 2-Wide Banana in Denver, he was dead to me.
Well, I know. Also, the reason Gruden likes him is because Rick Bisaccia, the special teams guy, he's a good special teams player. But honestly, especially in this offense, I know Gruden wants to run the ball, and
fullbacks are they're valuable in Gruden's offense. They're not in like you look at the NFL nowadays. Not every team, utilize them, but Gruden utilizes the fullback position, and you need a solid fullback in his offense for sure. And I think Keith Smith, he had his chance last year, and he did not. I don't think he played well at all. I think they should definitely go younger here, and give Alec Ingold a shot.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with Ramsey.
Yeah, I think back to the first go around with John Gruden. You think of Zach Crockett going through the middle, the fullback dive, and then John Ritchie just out of Stanford just exploding through the middle with his nose of his bridge bleeding. Just ugly football looking player. I love it. So the fullback is definitely a key player in the John Gruden system. So definitely agree. Alec Ingold. I really wanted them to draft him coming out in the late rounds. super happy they got him as a priority free agent. So, yep, Alec Ingold, as pretty much we said, all excited about and a virtual lock. The next guy I'll touch on is his roommate. Was his roommate at training camp. That's Keelan Doss. We touched on him a little bit earlier. UC Davis, 6'3", 215. Local kids, gotta love that. Born in Alameda. Set all kinds of records at UC Davis. Played for us in the Senior Bowl. Looked really good. He's really delivered as a pass catcher, especially in the short yardage game. Pro Football Focus has him rated very well. Some of the top rookies that's played so far had that great fade catch against Packers up the right sideline. As we touched on, really expect him to make the team. He's got number one, receiver ability, potentially a great find. Thought he was going to get drafted. Yes, so that's Keelan Doss. Next,
if I had a nickel for every time Brett Musburger said he's from Alameda, I'd be rich. But
they said it about 20 times on Hard Knocks at least.
Brett Musburger also, you gave him high praise. He said that he's the best rookie receiver he's ever seen. So
wow.
And it is early. It is early, but I think Keelan Doss definitely played his way into this roster, and hopefully he can have a good productive season with the Raiders. I think Gruden, he doesn't just plan on having him at the end of the roster. I think he plans on using him in the offense. So So we'll see. I'm a big fan of the guy. I'm rooting for him for sure.
Yeah, and then the next undrafted player that seems to be a lock appears to already win his position battle with the incumbent punter from last year. Johnny Townsend. That'd be AJ Cole. Started out booming the first couple weeks of preseason, and from the reports of Twitter, pretty much had a solid outing all throughout off season. John Gruden made a nice comment about, him having a powerful leg, comparable to a Leckler or a King. So that's exciting, after seeing those lack of changing field position of Townsend last year and continue to see him struggle. It's good to see them.
Johnny Townsend was just terrible last year. It was hard to watch him punt at times. I mean, besides that one run that he had, it was tough. It was tough to watch.
Got some wheels off.
Yeah, he does. They clock him like 21 miles per hour or something crazy. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Decide him to punt, not to run. So.
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
And I don't want to sound bad here. I was a little nervous that they were going to give him a little bit more extra time this year because he does have the ties to the Gruden family, and he was a middle round draft pick last year.
Yeah.
But he did so bad, and you only carry one punter. It's not like you can carry a backup and kind of wait for it. I'm really glad that they moved on. And
I honestly I hope I'm glad stepping away from him because, like you said, he was a draft pick, and it's a good sign that he's not tying himself to these draft picks.
It's definitely good. I think ever since Mayock walked in the door, they're definitely Gruden and Mayock are definitely for the betterment of the team. No matter what, they're gonna whoever they decide to keep on this 53-man roster is going to be the best 53 players in their eyes. And honestly, I trust them with it. So I think I think they're not playing favorites or anything like that. I think they obviously like guys and stuff like that, but I think they're going to keep the best 53 players no matter what. And obviously that's the goal on any team.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like you said, they're not connected. They're not, they're like, oh, we dropped this guy in the third round last year. We got to keep, I like the open competition on everything. You know what I mean? Just the best players. I like that a lot.
Got to be able to realize your mistakes. However, kind of like I did touch on the Parker, or, maybe a PJ Hall in the next pod. When you can afford backups, I do believe in, maybe giving them a little bit longer shelf life, maybe 2 years. I didn't like how we cut Mo and Fanu, 1 year after injury, but like I said, you got to be able to realize a mistake, and, it being the punter, you can only carry one. So it's a mistake you have to realize really quickly. And yeah, very happy that they, that Band-Aid off.
And also with the punter, it's pretty easy to tell. Punter's straight up about production. You know what I mean? Like, it's either you're getting it done or you're not. I don't think they're going to wait around.
Very,
develop. You know what I mean?
It's not like they're in the wrong scheme or, you're putting them in the wrong positions. Like, you're just back there and you're booming it.
Other positions that might be the case, but at punter, it's you checking the box or not. You know what I mean? It's got the job done.
Yeah, 100%. So these next couple guys, I want to say are locks, but with these position battles or not, we have them making our rosters. We'll go over it a little bit more on the pod, but the first guy I want to go over would be Anthony Rush, the nose tackle out of Alabama Birmingham. Really, since the Rams game through, he has looked phenomenal. 6'5", a generous listed weight at 350. I think he's about 380, boys. I don't know about you, but he's about a cheeseburger away from 4 bills. But he's recorded 9 tackles in 3 games, but you got to really look down the stat sheet. He's really just got powerful hands. He gets 2 hands on you, he extends them. He is going to collapse the line. Really provided some really good pocket push display, more than I've ever seen out of a Jelly Ellis. And since they're, 2 similar players possibly fighting for a roster spot, I'd give the edge to Rush. But it's just really been a pleasant surprise. Like I said, that ability to play the nose and be able to push the pocket a little bit is something rare that you find. So just a really good surprise, but bloodbath of a position group very similar to the wide receiver group. So we'll see if he's able to crack the 53 man. But I believe he will. I believe he's played so well. He's got to. And like I said, he's younger, so he should only get better. Any thoughts on Rush? You guys notice anything from him?
Honestly, I didn't know who Rush was until the Rams game. And he got in there about, I think it was mid-third quarter, and he absolutely dominated that guard, or center, who he's going against. The first play, he pushed that dude 5 yards. He didn't make the tackle, but he pushed that dude 5 yards in the backfield. I'm like, who is this guy? And you're right. He's shown that he can be a good player all camp, and I think he's been pretty dominant when he's gotten in the preseason. And
have you guys heard about his story about how he was initially with the Eagles, and they're loaded at D-tack, and then he ended up getting cut, and he went to the Lions, and the Lions basically they wouldn't give him a contract or whatever the case was. His agent said, we're going to give you guys a day to give us an offer, and if you don't, I'm going to Oakland. And they just ended up not doing it. I think they're honestly going to kick themselves for it because it looks like he's going to make the team.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to make the team. And honestly, if he doesn't, he's going to be on another team for sure. He's just he's
100%.
Another one of those guys in that thing. Like, he's an NFL player, and if he's not playing for the Raiders, he'll be playing for someone else. So
yeah.
Definitely. Yes, sir. And he's only going to get better. He's so young, you would think. So
honestly,
as I kind of touched on, if you're going to go between him and a Jelly, I would hope hold on to young Anthony Rush.
I think that's a very good point. I think that's exactly what they should do. And I mean, he, like you said, he's about a cheeseburger away from 4 bills. He's only going to get in better shape and get stronger. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's only going to get better. So I think it's definitely worth the investment. I think right now, at least.
Yeah, and then the other guy from an undrafted standpoint that's really showed out is Keyshawn Nixon, South Carolina corner, 5'10", 200 pounds. He just made plays all over the field, PBUs everywhere, playing that back pocket, using great technique, really turning for his head for the ball. If he turns half a second earlier, a couple times in Green Bay, might have a couple picks. JC transfer. Snoop Dogg, the nephew, he's just really played good. Gruden came out and said, he's arguably played the best in the secondary out of anyone. So I would expect him to make the team. A real nice surprise there. Just showed really good ball ability. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes to I'm just not a huge Nick Nelson fan. I know he got burned a couple times, and he was like a third or fourth round pick, I think, from last year, but I mean, this guy just looks significantly better than Nick Nelson right now. I think it's a no-brainer. I would, if it's between those two, then I'm going with this guy, with Keyshawn Nixon for sure.
I completely agree. I think, like you said, Gruden said he's really shown out in camp and stuff like that. And I think, he's definitely a special team. He has potential to be a great special teams player as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good reason to keep him.
Yes, sir. Okay, we're about wrapped up here. We got a couple more. Just we'll touch on very briefly. A couple linemen. First off would be Andre James. He was a tackle at UCLA. Got a lot of starts opposite of Colton Miller, but the Raiders moved him into center primarily. And he's a really imposing center at 6'4", 300 pounds. He's really made a good transition. On tape, it's looked like I don't believe he's given up a sack. Get really effective at getting to that second level, showing some lateral ability in the zone scheme. Like I said, I had him off the roster due to a tough cut, but 100% he will make the practice squad somewhere at minimum. I know the Raiders would love to have him back. Rodney Hudson has not been re-signed yet, which has really surprised me. And, I think if they keep this guy over Devy and, the longer they don't sign Rodney Hudson, it might be a sign that they're grooming this guy to possibly replace him. I don't want to give him that title yet for sure, but, he's just really looked good. And it's going to be someone that they're going to try to develop this year, whether it's on the roster or the practice squad. So he's been a really nice surprise. And then lastly, if I'm not forgetting anyone, the last undrafted player that's got a pretty decent shot at making the team that's really looked well is Lester Cotton from Alabama. Multiple time going to the national championship, playing several big games. SEC talent. He's played very well in this preseason as well. And with the fact that all those guard injuries, he's got a chance to make it. But once again, someone that will definitely at the minimum make a practice squad somewhere, if not a roster outright. And those are, those big undrafted players that really, really have a chance to make the roster of the Oakland Raiders, if not, somewhere else in the NFL. And if you were to tell me that, you get 6 undrafted players that are quality, grooming NFL players, I mean, that's amazing. What a job by Mike Mack and the scouting staff. And, with the coach's input as well, Gruden's very hands-on. I think that's something to be very proud of, and then moving on to our next subject, a little surprised about that Andrew Luck retirement, fellas. We'll just briefly go over it. We were getting ready for our inaugural fantasy draft, all of us together, having a few beverages in Reno. Some laughs were going back and forth, and we had that right before draft time. That news that Andrew Luck was retiring. What was some of your guys' first thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you to him for retiring, 15 minutes before our draft. But honestly, all jokes aside, the guy's an all-time great, and honestly, I've had 3 knee surgeries, so I kind of a little bit understand where he's coming from. How the rehab, just takes a toll on you, and just he's mentally checked out, and I honestly know how that feels. It's like, especially when you're in the NFL and you're the face of a franchise, if you're not 100% in it, like, I could see how you don't want to, it's just like, it's better just to step aside. And, he's catching a lot they were booing him when he was walking off the field, and he's catching a lot of heat on social media and stuff.
Man.
But honestly, I respect the guy a ton for that, because he said if it got to this point that he was going to retire, and he did. He's a man of his word, and that's a hard thing to do. The guy passed up, I think, what was it, $58 million or something like that. And
just said, on the table.
Said, I'm not playing. Hats off to the guy, honestly. It's a sad thing. It's sad for the league that, he's a great player at the top of his game right now. And the Colts honestly had a very possible chance to make a Super Bowl run this year. But, it's a sad thing, but I respect the guy a ton for that. It's that's a total hard thing to do. And, I definitely commend him for that, for sure.
Yeah, and you have an interesting perspective being a football player, so definitely going through the rehab like that, what it's like, and you got to be there. And I don't know if you guys probably saw his, touch on his press conference a little bit. You could tell it's not something he really expected or wanted to.
No
he
way.
could barely even talk. Yeah.
And like I always say, like football's not the type of sport where it's not the type of sport you can kind of want to play. You have to be 100% mentally in it to play, or else it's not fun at all. You know what I mean? You're getting physically, it's a gladiator sport. You're getting beat up every day. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you're not 100% in it and you're not having fun, then it's just honestly not worth it anymore. And I think he made the right decision for himself. And I mean, can't really get upset with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, I think one thing that's apparent is I think people are acting kind of like he was ready to go, like he was going to be playing week 1. I think it's apparent. I mean, I think Albert Breer at MMQB, I think he wrote something like there's a good chance he was going to be on IR. So
Yeah,
I mean,
he hasn't practiced since like August.
Yeah, he hasn't practiced. So I mean,
July 29th, I think it was.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a guy that he was legitimately hurt right now, and I think there's a solid chance that the doctors were looking at him like you could maybe play this year, but you're at risk for further injury. I mean, the guy has just gone through it all. I mean, the list of his injuries is insane, and I think pretty much everyone's blamed their former GM Ryan Grigson, Colts management when he first entered the league, and I mean it's like you said, it's pretty sad. I mean, this is a guy that could have potentially been in top 5 quarterback talks at the end of the day, but such a premature retirement. It is really sad, and he's already missed so much time. It's
definitely one of those Barry Sanders type things. What could have been, it's just like it's just sad what he could. He'd had so much more in front of him, but I mean. Hopefully, obviously, I want the best. I'm a fan. I want the best for him. So if this is the best thing that he thinks he should do, then I'm behind him with it.
Yeah, 100% support the man, and some added support. I don't know if Gronkowski meant this directly, but after that retirement announcement, Gronk got interviewed, I believe yesterday or 2 days ago, and he talked about his body. He was about to cry too. He had he was basically bedridden after the Super Bowl, from a pretty common hit to the thigh, and these guys' bodies, they're doing Toradol, they're doing anything they get their hands on, with this big pharmaceutical business, partnership with the NFL that, they gotta realize that life goes on after football, and I totally respect them for
I think that's the one thing.
That.
At least coming from a football player's perspective, that's the one thing that's the hardest for the average NFL fan to understand. You know what I mean? Because obviously the average NFL fan, they want their team to win no matter what at all costs, which is great. That's okay. But I think that's the one thing they kind of bypass is the players' like state of mind. You know what I mean? Like they don't. Yeah. They just kind of forget human. Sometimes. Yeah, like exactly. They're humans. They have a life. They have a wife. They have kids. They have, they do all the same things you do. They just play professional football. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that's the one thing. That's why those guys catch backlash, is because like the average fan's hard for them to understand.
I think once everyone took a step back and heard what he had to say, I don't think there is a single Colts fan that wouldn't, tip their hat to luck. I mean, the amount of stuff. I think it was kind of an in the moment thing. These fans are at the game and they're like,
they see him on the
intoxicated.
Exactly. Just think about it from our perspective. Like, think about it as being, like a Raider fan or whatnot. I mean, if Derek Carr did that in the middle of the game, or even let's just take it back to 2016 when he got hurt in that against the Colts. I mean, obviously it's a little different than retirement, but just the whole season, just boom, gone like that in an instant. One Adam Schefter tweet.
It's like it got stolen from you. You know what I mean? It's like they took it straight from your hand. So
Super Bowl contenders.
And people are looking at Andrew Luck walking out the field. He doesn't have a cast on. He's not on crutches. So they're like, oh, like come on. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
But
no, 100% agree with that. Yeah. What you guys are saying. Yeah.
All right, boys, to wrap up the pod today, we're gonna, got a little subject for our local resident Laker fan, Ramsey here. How you feeling about that Dwight Howard reunion, big guy? How you feeling about that?
Back in 2012 when he signed, I was the most excited person there was, Laker fan, but obviously it didn't work out and stuff like that. But given their current situation, I think, it's the best thing they probably could have done. I mean, Rondo and LeBron and JaVale apparently met with Dwight several times before they signed him, just to see their state of mind and stuff like that. And Dwight saying, and I quote, he said, I thought I had that killer instinct before, but now I definitely do, and I know what it takes. And I think honestly, I believe the guy. He's 32 years old, right? And
a little bit.
Yeah,
he has said that many times though.
He has, but
Very
it's kind of like this is it for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like this is it.
100%.
It's like he's
There's
all
no
in.
risk signing.
Like,
That's
there's
for
not
sure.
much left for him. There's not much. He's about to be on the end of the bench with the Memphis Grizzlies. Being a lottery pick team. I think this is it for him, and I think if he's ever been truthful about being all in, this is it. Whether he is or not remains to be seen. And honestly, I don't think he's even going to start. I think JaVale is going to start. But
and you would think he's been embarrassed so much by the media.
So many times.
Projecting to be his final time, you would think he's really all in. And to be honest, I hope he does find a little bit of success because
it's a pretty low risk contract too.
I'm a huge Laker fan, so obviously I'm biased, but I think I trust LeBron enough to LeBron, and they probably did their due diligence to they're not going to bring a guy on that's not all in. You know what I mean? I think this year they definitely have the mindset they're winning at all costs. So I think Dwight's on board, and we'll see. It's gonna, and if he can channel it back at all, then we'll see. You know what I mean? We'll see.
It's pretty low risk. I mean, it's not a guaranteed contract or anything. So
low risk too. Like I said, I don't even think he's not gonna be the day one starter.
Yeah.
I think if Dwight Howard is your 12th man off the bench, I think that's a pretty good thing to have. So at the
end of the day, though, I mean, that 12th man, you want him to come in, clock in, keep his head down. I mean, it just remains to be seen how it works out in that locker room. Like, if he creates any rifts in it, which hopefully he doesn't. He's not the biggest ego like he was.
They probably wouldn't even waste a second on cutting him.
Yeah, 100%.
But you're right. There's a lot of personalities in that locker room, 100%. And so I don't know. I think so sad for Boogie too. I mean, that guy's been through it.
God,
I feel so bad for that guy. He had $200 million and 2 months away from signing that. You know what I mean? And it just all goes downhill for the guy.
Yeah.
So prayers up for him. I hope he can get back well. But I mean, I think for what they had in front of them, for the Dwight Howard thing, they worked out Mo Spates and Joakim Noah. I think honestly, out of the three, Dwight was probably the best option, given what the Lakers want. They want a rim protecting center that can run. I think that was probably their best option. And like you said, Josh, it's pretty low risk, high reward type of deal. And so we'll see. I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, definitely some, big optimism down in LA for this coming basketball year, whether it's in Clipperville or, Lakerland. It's some good optimism, and me and Josh, being that Warriors support, we're open for some challenges, these upcoming years, and we're looking forward to it as well. It's definitely gonna be an interesting landscape.
I'm sure down the road we'll do many, many, many podcasts on this, but. Yeah, I'm very excited for this upcoming NBA season, and it's gonna do it. It's must watch TV this year, so I can't wait.
All right, fellas. Well, this is it for episode 1. Thanks for joining us, gals and girls. Don't want to discriminate here. Continue to support, and feel free to hit us up on Twitter and send us some questions. Stay tuned for episode 2. Thanks.
All right. Peace.